Hi there, Steve here. Today I'm going to, someone said, what do I think of Brexit and Trump and stuff? So I don't want to wade into all of that, but today I'm going to talk a little bit about my learning and a little bit about my views on sort of the political situation that we find ourselves in. First of all, I had a Ukrainian conversation this morning and I did so well. I'm so happy because I've been struggling. But I've been continuing my listening and reading. But I just noticed that as I read the text on my iPad in Link and then I listen again, more of these words are now clearer to me. The content that I'm ingesting in my input activities is becoming clearer. And lo and behold, today I just hit it in my 1 hour conversation in Ukrainian. I was finding the words, I was hitting the right grammar notes. And so it's one of these eureka moments where you feel all the effort is worth it. So it's to basically prod you people, don't give up, keep at it, but you need a lot of input, a lot of combination of listening and reading. And so this is what I'm doing to learn Ukrainian or to learn other languages. Learning languages is not, the only thing there is to do in the world. There's so many things that we can learn on our own if we are, and again, the three keys in language learning apply to so much else. In other words, motivation or attitude, the amount of time you spend, and then developing that ability to notice. I notice more and more of the Ukrainian as I'm listening and reading. As I notice, it starts to stick in my brain. But this is true if you're learning other things. There's so many things that we can learn on our own. So this makes me think of the whole political crisis that we now have in the United States and elsewhere. But if I just look at the United States, this message from President Trump and others that, things have never been so bad, it's a mess, I don't know, whatever words he uses, carnage, disaster and stuff. And I'm saying okay, so where is the disaster? If you look up statistics, for example, if you were to Google, I can't remember what it was called here. Bear with me. One is called How America Spends Money, 100 Years in the Life of the Family Budget. And you will find that, in the year, 100 years ago, people spent 45% of the family budget on food. Today, that number is 12%, all right? And in 100 years ago, in 1900, people spent almost 30% of their money on, so that the 42% in 1900 dropped to 30% in 1950, and today it's 12%. The amount that was spent on clothing in 1900 was like 12%, it's now less than 5%. So in other words, what this shows is that the amount of discretionary income that people has dramatically increased, including in comparison with 2003. If we look at how people spend their money today, we will see that people spend more money now going out to eat than they do on food at home. Now, obviously that doesn't apply to all classes of people, and obviously in the very lowest fifth or quintile, people spend 20-30% of their budget on food. However, overall, Americans spend more money going out to eat than they do at home. This didn't used to be the case. This is spending in 2012. People spend 5% on entertainment, 5% on restaurants, and where are we? Groceries is 7%. So they spend more money on restaurants and entertainment than they do on groceries today. So things can't be that bad. On the other hand, on education, they spend 2%. So, as I analyze all these numbers, what becomes clear to me is that people should spend more money on education. And that the two items that have become expensive now are housing and cars. People 100 years ago didn't own cars and were more likely to rent. So there are issues around cars and how we use the automobile. I mean, it's tremendously wasteful. Something there has to give. And similarly, if everyone wants to live in the most attractive cities, then the price of housing is going to keep on going up. But maybe with the advent of the internet and so forth, people will seek, and maybe that's starting to happen, seek to live in less expensive places. The other thing, of course, is health and education. I mean, in the US, 18% of the GDP is spent on health. That's much higher than anywhere else. It seems to me that has to become more efficient. And education. Here again, while the statistics show a very low level of unemployment in the United States, and there are people who say, well, yeah, but there's 90 million people looking for work, but that includes retired people, students, people who can't work and so forth and so on. But still, there are people who have dropped out of the workforce. There's a certain sense of discouragement. And yet, there's like 5.5 million jobs in the United States for which there are no takers. And the reason is that people don't have the skills to do these jobs. So again, if we go back to over 100 years ago, when maybe half of the people worked on the farm, and then say just after the Second World War, where a large number of people worked in factories, things change. So we only have 3, 4, 5% people on the farm, and we're going to have fewer people in factories. It doesn't really matter whether the factory jobs in the US are displaced by imports from low-wage countries or by robots in the United States. One way or another, those jobs are not coming back. But the jobs that are there require certain skills. And in the United States, and probably elsewhere, Canada, you name it, people aren't training themselves for those jobs. Another statistic I found by Googling is that apprenticeships are down. Fewer and fewer people want to take, apprenticeship type positions to learn a trade where there are good wages, $100,000 plus wages to be had. I know at our sawmill in northern Alberta, we had all kinds of trouble finding skilled tradespeople. Why do people not want to go into apprenticeships? Because the prestige of those jobs isn't as high as getting some college degree in gender studies and whatever. So, on the one hand, Trump is saying we're going to bring back factory jobs, but it would appear that for whatever reason, people don't consider those jobs to be prestigious, even though they pay well if you have the right skills. So somehow that needs to be addressed. And also, we have this tremendously expensive educational sort of infrastructure where, if I were to try to learn my languages in college, I would learn less and it would cost me an awful lot more. I've been able to learn, 7 languages in the last 10 years using using resources on the internet. Obviously, it doesn't apply to everything. It doesn't apply to, professional trades where you obviously have to do hands-on training. But a lot of the technology behind these trades requires a lot of reading. And so there's a lot of it that people can do on their own to prepare themselves to take a technical course. As it is right now, unfortunately for Mr. Trump, a large percentage of the technical jobs in the United States are filled by immigrants because the Americans aren't training themselves in these jobs. And he's catering to a constituency that is complaining that they want their factory jobs back. But they aren't going to get them back. And if they do get them back, they won't be able to compete with other countries. So invest in education, streamline health services, and also recognize that in many ways, people do live a lot better today than they did 50 years ago. So when you're talking about Make America Great Again, which period are you really talking about? And finally, I think there's a lot that people can do on their own. We needn't wait for the president to make my life great again. Maybe individuals need to look at ways in which they can make their lives better again. So, bit of a ramble around, first of all, my sense of euphoria that my efforts in Ukrainian are bearing fruit. And to continue on that, I'm going to do Ukrainian for another couple of weeks. Then I'm going to go after Polish and Czech and do a little bit of Russian in the background. And this is my strategy here of working on 4 Slavic languages at the same time to see to what extent it helps me and to what extent it causes interference. And I am going to be in Bratislava in June, where there's a polyglot conference, and so part of my strategy is to build up my capability in these Slavic languages. I may not have time to get to Slovak or Slovakian, but if I have the Polish and the Czech, I'm sure I'll understand the Slovaks. And then later in June, I will visit Lviv and Ukraine, kind of a reward for my effort into learning Ukrainian. So there you have it, a bit of a ramble. I look forward to your comments. Bye for now.